it was cold calling, it was prospecting, it
Okay.
was make business happen, and it was that I can tell you was a defining point in my
Okay.
career, in my life, because that was the first time in my life where I felt completely without options. I had to make that job successful, and I was in so far over my head. I was cold calling to try to sell something that is incredibly complex and technical that I didn't understand, and I was selling it to people who knew it way more than I did.
Gosh.
It was
Jumping in the deep end.
it was incredibly intimidating, and, you know, I wasn't successful at it for a while. I just remember having this, like, crushing anxiety of, like, every day I felt like I was gonna get fired because I hadn't sold a single thing.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of the podcast with me, your host today, Anabi. Exciting to have Brian Skowron with me from Lullabot. He's the president over at Lullabot, and happy to have you on, Brian.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me in.
Yeah, it's been
Excited.
a minute. Thank you. It's been a minute of us chatting to come on board, and I'm so stoked. Schedules worked out to get into it. Your background is very fascinating to me. With your start in radio, sports broadcasting, and leading up to this moment. So, if you will, let's chart a course, a whirlwind tour of your experience leading up to this
Sure.
moment and an inflection point along the way.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Gosh, I don't know if my story is very exciting, but, yeah, it definitely started in the world of radio, TV, film, or at least thought that's where I was going to go. I remember when we one of the first times we met in person, I was at your office space where your podcast studio was, and I remember I was like, "Ah," like, that brings back warm feelings, like, seeing the studio with the microphones and everything else, so this is exciting to be here. But, yeah, I guess to tell the story, so I went to school and got my degree in radio, TV, film at the University of North Texas. And in my young, naive days, I thought I wanted to be a sports broadcaster and do sports talk radio. And, ended up maybe against better judgment trying to pursue that, not knowing what career prospects were going to be like in that world. And one of the things that was super cool about the University of North Texas is it's a major radio market. It's one of the top 5 radio markets, and the campus radio station
Oh, I
was
did not
a
know that.
huge radio station as far as radio stations go. They had like I think 100,000-watt signal or something like that. Um,
I don't know what that means, but it sounds like a lot.
yeah, yeah, it covered the whole metroplex,
Wow.
which was, intimidating, but also really cool as a college student. So I volunteered for the campus radio station, and what was really neat about that, being in such a big media market, that radio station had standing press passes with some professional sports teams like the Dallas Stars, the Dallas Mavericks, Texas Rangers, and so got to kind of participate in that and go, be in the press box and those sorts of things, which was really really cool for you know, a kid in his early 20s, right? Um, but, uh but yeah, one of the things that I remember fondly from that time was I was in a class, with that was taught by an adjunct professor named Bill Mercer, who used to be the play-by-play announcer for the Dallas Cowboys, way back in the day. And this class, he would just flat out, like, send us to high school football games in the area and have us sit there with a microphone and do the play-by-play of a game while it occurred live, right?
Oh my gosh.
And first of all, that is so difficult. I have much respect for the people that can do that because I learned very quickly that I could absolutely not do that. And secondly, this guy, he was incredible because he had this amazing career, but what he did in the class was he would take all of our painful sports audio and listen to all of it and then write handwritten notes and suggestions, which was
Dedication right there.
yeah. So it was just a really cool experience. And, the thing that like impacted that still sticks with me today and impacts, my career in technology was when you're calling a game, like they have, one of the things that he recommended was he said, get yourself a physical, like an egg timer, like the little thing you turn that goes like, he was like, do that, set it for a minute at a time. And just like whenever that goes off, have it next to you. And whenever it goes off, reset, reset the call. And what that means is like basically, you do the thing that sportscasters do, which is they say like it's, 3rd quarter, 4th down, and this team is up by 12. I just sort of sets the like resets, gets everybody on the same page, and you don't really realize it. It kind of fades into the background. But when you watch a sports broadcast, like that's what they do. And they do it just about every minute. And that ended up being a really useful device that I still use today, like when I'm in meetings and calls or conversations, one-on-ones, to just kind of occasionally, not every minute, but occasionally like reset, remind, and, get everybody aligned on like, why are we here? Why are we having this conversation? What are we hoping to get out of it? And
That's really good.
it ends up just kind of being a thing. So yeah, that was the start. And then eventually I graduated with a radio, TV, film degree, had very few job prospects, worked in media sales, met my now wife, and we both moved to New York in our early 20s. And in New York, that's really kind of where I started in technology. So she got a job transfer. She got a promotion, which was great. And, she's the superstar in our household for sure. But, I kind of tagged along and, had to figure out how to make my career fit this new environment and this new city.
That's applaudable. That's applaudable that she got the promotion and you guys feel like, "Yep, we're doing it," and you went along. That's great.
When you're young, that's the time for crazy swings, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool.
I remember it felt very scary and exhilarating at the time,
Yeah.
and, it's no regrets at all. My life today is probably
Hashtag no regrets.
yeah. I think my life is what it is because I made that leap and
Wow.
and the net appeared. So,
That's a fascinating thing with, these leaps, inflection point, pivotal moments. Sometimes we don't notice them in the moment, and sometimes we can, but many times it's in hindsight, you're like, "Well, that happened, so this could happen, so this could happen, and here I am right now." And then you're grateful that you made that leap. How long were y'all in New York for after that move?
we were there for 3 years. We were there from 2005 to 2008. We moved back right before the financial
Hey.
crash. Yeah, yeah.
Oh gosh.
It was a interesting time to be in New York. It was a fun time to be in New York, and we go back, I go back for work somewhat frequently, and it's been fascinating to watch that city change because we lived in, Astoria, and at the time, like, Long Island City, if you know the area, it was like nothing, and now there's, like, high-rise buildings for days. It's kind of where all the development's happening. It's pretty wild.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So you got your start there in tech, moved to New York, got a taste for tech. I know at some point you got into open source, or you like open. No, what's the connection there? Or was that where you got open source?
Not
Initial taste.
Yeah, I think this is where I ended up getting into technology.
Okay.
Open source kinda came later.
Okay.
So, in New York, when we talk about it being a leap, and really being an inflection point or a turning point in my life and in my career, if I could paint a picture, basically, we ended up moving to New York. I moved and got a sales assistant job with, like, Fox Sports or not Fox Sports, Fox Station Sales, which was like a owned company that sold advertising for like TV stations, basically.
Okay.
Did not enjoy that work environment at all, and very quickly was like, I've just got to get out of there. And it paid nothing. It paid a non-living living wage in New York, basically.
Yeah.
I think it was like 23,000 a year or something
Gosh.
what we made.
Was it that plus commission or just that?
No, that was it. It was like 23,500, something like that.
Gosh.
May have gotten a raise, like negotiated a raise to 26,000, but it was not a lot. And it
Did
was a
that
really
experience teach you any something though? So pay was crappy, or maybe that was the lesson. But what did you walk away from that with? You did that sales thing, and you're like, nope, not for me. That could be the experience, but like, what would you say? Um, that helped
that
form
that's a good
as you walk.
question. I mean, I don't wanna be unkind to anybody,
Yeah,
but I think really, like, when I think about that time, I think the thing that experience gave me was a real clear picture of the type of manager or the type of working environment I didn't wanna create,
nice.
which I would say was one of, uh, ag you know, aggressiveness, confrontation, not a lot of, shared morale or culture. I left with a really clear idea of, like, that's not me, that's not who I am. I don't wanna be in an environment like that, nor do I wanna create one in the future.
Makes sense. Yep.
So, I was really looking for any sort of escape valve out of that, and I ended up interviewing and getting an introduction to a hosting company because this
Like
was
web hosting.
yeah, web hosting.
Okay.
This was back in the day of dedicated server hosting, managed server hosting, if
Oh
you
la
remember
la.
those days.
How far things have come.
Yeah. So I got an opportunity to be a salesperson for a managed hosting company, that's no longer around. It was called LogicWorks at the time. Uh, it was, if you can imagine, the role was like basically, congratulations, you are now a salesperson for this managed hosting company. Go sell business. Like I was, I don't know, 4 maybe, 23. I don't remember how old I was, but it was cold calling, it was prospecting, it was
Mm.
make business happen, and it was that I can tell you was a defining point in my career,
Okay.
in my life, because that was the first time in my life where I felt completely without options. I had to make that job successful, and I was in so far over my head. Uh, I was cold calling to try to sell something that is incredibly complex and technical that I didn't understand, and I was selling it to people who knew it way more than I did.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it was
Jumping in the deep end.
it was incredibly intimidating, and, I wasn't successful at it for a while. I just remember having this, like, crushing anxiety of, like, every day I felt like I was gonna get fired because I hadn't sold a single thing. I was there for several months, and I think it was, like, month 3 or round about month 3, I was just waiting for the other shoe to drop, but kept going, had, a mentor within the company named Ben Friedman, who I'm still friends with today, who, kinda taught me a lot about sales and taught me a lot about, technology and just sort of how to have the drive to keep going. And,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, it was I had to make it work. And
Yeah.
so I remember the first sale I ever made, it was with, I sold a single dedicated server to the Apollo Theater, and, Ron Dixon was the guy I worked with, and like, a couple of years ago, I looked him up on LinkedIn, and I was just like, "Hey, man, thank you." Like,
What?
"Thank you for
That's
taking pity
awesome.
on this poor young kid trying to, sell things." But yeah,
Oh my gosh. That is incredible. That is incredible.
it
I
was
remember
go
I
ahead.
remember my first tech gig in the US, and I had done so many interviews trying to get a SQL database developer role. And, I did like an internship or apprenticeship to get into this space. So that was my kind of first experience, but I needed like the first paying gig. And I remember Demetrius, he's going to get a shout out here, Barnes. He was at Colony American Hopes at the time. And I interviewed with him. I had put out so many applications, applied to so many places, and I was falling into the conundrum of, well, you seem to know the stuff, you did an apprenticeship, you learned some things, but we need to have real experience, real work experience. And no company wanted to be that first company to give me experience. And I interviewed with him, and he knew that, and he was like, I like your aptitude. You're excited, you're passionate, and yeah, let's do it. I'll give you a chance. And that was a defining moment for me because that got me started officially in tech in the US. And after that, I was able to grow. And, I've worked for companies like Microsoft,
Yeah.
Dell, and Dell, and but I still look back and I'm like, wow, that was the start. So I thought about him because a few years ago, the same thing. I just like, hey man, thank you so much for
Yeah.
that opportunity because that started a chain reaction for a lot more that he probably never even saw. He just gave me a chance, and that was all I needed.
Sometimes that's all it takes. Like, sometimes it's
Yeah,
just, those sweet people in life that see something and just take a chance and, make a high risk bet on somebody. I had a similar thing at that same job. It was, my manager, Greg Katayev. Like, I remember he was like, "Listen," because I was like, "I don't understand this technology." And he's like, "Well, like, you're smart, like, you've done your homework, you can like, I think you can figure out what you need to figure out here." And,
yeah,
like, as I was continually freaking out, having not sold anything and wondering when I was gonna get fired, he's like, "Listen, you're doing the right things. Give it time. It'll work out,"
yeah.
Try to remember that and
It will come
give
together.
people grace that I work with today because, if somebody extended that kindness to you, like, you really ought to pay it back as much as possible in your career.
Absolutely.
Hard to remember to do that sometimes.
Yeah, especially in the moment when someone's getting on nerves
Yeah.
with this. You're like, come on. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
But yeah, so let's talk about Lullabot. So fast forward, you're president at Lullabot. I don't think you started off being president at Lullabot. What did that look like? And if you will, talk a little bit more about what Lullabot does for those who are listening.
sure. Yeah. Um, yeah. So, I mean, Lullabot is an amazing company. It's the best company I've ever worked at in my entire life, and I hope to retire from Lullabot one day.
Amazing. Yeah.
So Lullabot is a digital agency. That's kind of the short version, but we do strategy, design, development. We have expertise in, large scale platforms and systems of sites. We have become very well known in the state government space. We were the company that, built Georgia's web infrastructure, which is a
Nice.
platform called GovHub. We built Iowa's DX platform, which runs all of the iowa.gov sites. And we have done similar work with Massachusetts, and we're working with Maryland and now Arizona. But, you know, we sort of had our roots in Drupal, which is an open source technology, open source content management system. Over the years, Lullabot's been around since 2006. We've worked with so many different household names and, kind of large brands across lots and lots of different industries. And I've been blessed and fortunate to have some amazing experiences with those clients and with coworkers that I respect and admire and have worked with for years. So, how did I end up there? Uh,
Yeah.
so the connective tissue between the managed hosting to here to Lullabot was, I ended up when we left New York, I ended up working for another managed hosting company, and I incidentally ended up cold calling the co-founder of Lullabot at the time, um, whose name
That's
was
fun.
Matt Westgate, and basically tried to manage hosting services to Matt, and we ended up hitting it off and did a few projects together, and then, the hosting company I was working with at the time, also out of business now, was kind of like the host of record for Lullabot, and, when that managed hosting company got acquired and started to go a different direction. I was in touch with Matt, and he was like, "Hey, listen, we love working with you. You're great. We need a sales manager. Would you be interested in working with us?" And I was like, "Okay." And that
Sure.
was that was another leap at the time, because
Wow.
it was a different type of company. It was a pay cut at the time, and, it kinda set me down a different path, and then that was in 2011, and, over time, over the years, it's been really, really amazing to see Lullabot grow and evolve. It's been
Yeah.
The 2 co-founders have since exited the business. The business is now employee-owned, which is
Wow. That's
amazing and
remarkable.
inspiring. It, is something that I, like, feel genuinely good about being a part of,
Yeah.
and we're working with organizations to make their digital services better in a way that impacts humans. It's pretty cool, It also pays my bills, which is nice.
Hey, that's nice icing on the cake. It's interesting because I was just having a conversation on another podcast recently, and we talked about technology, right? Digital analog, technology in general is made typically for humans. Like technology rarely often exists in a vacuum for the sake of this technology doing its thing. Like usually has a funk. Could be humans, right, or even animals, but usually that's humans orchestrating that. What we're seeing increasingly is, many tech companies, right, and those who build technology, forgetting the humans in the first place. You optimize the heck out of the technology, you build it, but it's like the humans are like, this is not usable. I hate this. This doesn't solve my needs. So I think we're going to see increasingly a shift towards human-centric design and how can we build this for the humans in the first place? Focus on CX. My new role now with Colorado, right, is the CX, customer experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's a shift we're beginning to see with the rise of frontier technology and cutting edge technology like AI. It's like, wait, what's the point of all of this? It's meant for human thriving in the first place. So let's not lose sight of that. So that's something that stood out to me with you and what Lullabot is doing. And you and I have had multiple conversations, seeing in action, seeing at conferences. And that's something I really enjoy. Y'all have grown since 2006. You've had some pretty significant projects and collaborators. But I think the one thread that I've seen is just that obsession, the human-centric aspect to what you do. So I
Yeah.
applaud that and excited to see us and hopefully collaborate some more
Yeah.
as we go down the road.
I'm glad you brought that up actually, because one of our core values is to be human. Like, be human is one of our core values, and it seems to be the one that resonates the most with our team. And, people can kind of roll their eyes at, like, company values sometimes,
Yeah.
a lot of times they can be kinda empty, but we try to walk the walk, and what's really interesting in the past few years, I feel like being human has kind of been under direct assault with a lot of the
Hmm.
emerging AI and automation tooling and, those sorts of things. And there was somebody who mentioned, I can't take credit for this, another digital agency friend in a conversation, I forget exactly who said it, but somebody was kind of prognosticating about AI, and they made the point of, like, when artificial intelligence is ubiquitous and everybody has the same kind of abilities because AI grants those abilities, humanity is gonna be the scarce commodity, and
Wow.
it really sort of made me think a bit, and it's like, yeah, like, that's gonna be harder and harder to find, like, really true human interactions and things that feel genuine, authentic. Just this week, yesterday, I was trying to set up an appointment with an air conditioning company to do some maintenance in my house,
Yeah.
and I was surprised, like, calling to make the appointment, I talked to an AI agent, which was very seamless, polished, but clearly AI, right? And that kicked me into a scheduling queue, and they're actually supposed to arrive at some point today. I don't know what time, called their office line, to try to figure out roughly what time, eventually got to a human who said, "Okay, like, I'll kick you to like, I'll leave a message for our scheduler, and they'll try to contact you at some point today." And it's like,
Wow.
all of that, all of those layers are designed to eliminate human interaction. And, like, here I am, the customer paying, and I don't have a basic answer as to, like, when these folks are coming to my house. And that's just, like, one service. I
Yeah.
feel like there are so many services and interactions and digital touch points that are going to have similar frustrations and
Mhm.
similar opacity. And, I feel like there is a differentiator and an opportunity to really create smart interactions that, enhance human experience and, like, showcase it and bring it to the forefront
Mhm.
rather than automate it away. And that's
I
what I feel more excited about.
I could not agree more. I could not agree more. It's there's a promise of AI and cutting edge technology. I'll loop it all together. But yes, I think increasingly coming back to why we're building those in the first place for human to be key. I mean, I've even been thinking about it for my daughters. For now, I have two daughters, right? One of the key things as they get older, we want to teach them is it might sound funny and cheesy, but it's like literally how to be human. It's
Yeah.
like, how can we teach them how to do that better, right? Speaking, how do you pass a point across? How can you convince people? How can you make friends? How can you get in a room, right, and be able to read the room and make connections? How do you, know how to put on events, like the human things, shake hands, look someone in the eyes, and be direct, like things like that, right? Where I think for our kids growing up with a lot of technology, those some of those human-esque interactions might be harder. I mean, as the whole COVID, when COVID happened and many kids were not in school, even for adults, right? A lot of us were not in office for a while. Like, we laughed about it because you meet someone and you're like, do I shake? Do I fist bump? Do I? And it was kind of,
You wave? Right.
way. It's like kind of awkward. So we need practice. The point I'm trying to make, and to the degree we can, right? We want to provide those opportunities as much as possible for practicing in being human.
Well, your kids have the best teacher as far as that
Hey,
goes. I mean, I have to say, I've always been impressed at people who both naturally and genuinely connect with people, and I've seen that with you, like, from the jump. I don't know that I've ever
thank you,
seen
sir.
someone just be like, "Hey, have you met this person? Have you met this person?" Like, and know everybody, like, on a personal human level, not just like, these are professional colleagues, and, I always admire that.
Yeah.
That does not come naturally for me. I have to work at it.
Hey, you do great, man. You hold your own. But there is a quote you had that I don't want to forget that you had shared, like a dad quote.
Yeah.
And do you want to share it? I have it written
Sure.
right here.
Yeah. So, I mean, talking about the human element, right? I admire my dad in a lot of ways, and I look up to him. He's retired now. He was a manufacturing engineer for most of his career and worked at a lot of interesting companies, but he retired a few years ago. And I can't remember how we got on the topic, but, one of the things that he said that just really, like, shifted my way of thinking about things was, he was saying that as he was toward the end of his career, reflecting back on it, he said, "Listen, I used to always kind of think of companies as these, like, big permanent institutions." He worked with companies like Ingersoll Rand and, Lockheed Martin, like, all of these kind of, like, big, recognizable, long-standing companies, right? And he said, "I used to think of these companies as permanent institutions, and, we as people get jobs within those companies, like, the people come and go and IBM continues on, right?" But he was like, "As I look back on my career and kind of the twists and turns it's gone through, I realized that I had that totally backwards, and it's actually the people that are the permanent institutions, and the companies come and go.
Wow.
Companies change ownership, companies go in and out of business. With any particular industry niche or vertical or space that you operate in, it's a community, right? Like, it's a small community of people, and those people are, if you stay in the same career, they tend to be there for most of your career. And so, really, as much as you try to do right by your employer or your company, you gotta always do right by your people and the people around you, whether or not they're, like, coworkers, employees, competitors. This is, like, we're all humans.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's a
That
great
that
point.
quote just really resonated with me, and I try to remind myself of it all the time, especially when, like, business is taking us down funny twists and turns. It's like,
Yeah,
you know what? We're all on this roller coaster together.
man, that is striking. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's been phenomenal to have you on, Brian. Thank you so much. What a fitting way to end that with such a powerful quote. I'll make sure I add that to show notes. But there's something you sent to me, and I thought was super cool. I love the way your mind works. You sort of put, the lessons learned in the different chapters, and I'm going to read them out. I'll also add these to show notes, right? So from the radio, TV, film background you had, right, one key lesson there was the egg timer, the reset, learning how to reset, pause, reset,
Yeah.
and get things going and sort of like time box in. I call that a Pomodoro. There's a Pomodoro timer. It's like
Oh,
a
yeah.
tomato. So I literally use that right now in my life sometimes, and I need to do deep work, right? 15 minute sprints, 25-minute, whatever it is, so I can go deep. And you come up for air, and then you reset it again and go in. So there is that. So the reset. And then with your move to New York, two things: say what you need to quickly and shut up,
I didn't
and then
follow
be
that advice on
authentic.
this podcast.
No, no, that was good. This was good. And then be authentic, right? In the world of AI and so many distractions, I think authenticity as humans, I think goes a long way. And then for digital and open source, three things: embrace knowing what you don't know, embrace collaboration, make intentional space. And there's a fourth lesson that I add, and I think this applies all across, is mentorship, the importance of mentorship. That has been a recurring theme through this, but a lot of people like, I had this mentor, this person that took a chance on me. So that's another one that really stands out. Then there's obviously your dad's quote, which I will summarize as, humans, people are the permanent institutions and companies come and go. So thank you, sir, for the words of wisdom. It was awesome to have you on today.
Thank you. Yeah, this was fun. I wish we could do it longer. It's always
Yes.
fun talking with you.
Let's do more.
Yeah, definitely.